So then clearly we'll be interested in terms of where is this funding and mainly funding FDI primarily coming from. So the interesting story, as I said, we don't see China there because we all expected China. It is there, but not really dominant. So the big dominant continents that have invested into our market primarily is Western Europe, primarily the French and those areas which are looking more into the French-speaking sub-Saharan Africa. And then the United States, surprise to everybody because everybody, when Trump came on board, he was pulling back what I call the bad type of funding, which is the donor funding, the debt, which actually doesn't have a long-term direct impact. So that money has dried up 100%. But what has increased is that US companies that are seeking growth outside of the US have looked more into Africa, north, west, and even into some southern parts. Primarily because you'll see the sectors that have had the most investment into, these are sort of strong industries in the US. So areas like tech, areas like renewable energy, those are where US companies are very successful and strong. Also renewable energy in terms of France as well is a big player in that. And you'll see later on, South Africa did receive quite a fair bit of love as well, mainly because that was the back end of the IPP renewable program that Department of Energy ran a couple of years back, where they were allowing private companies to come invest into building renewable energy projects into wind, solar, and coal. The big challenge is that Eskom is not ready to receive that output yet. So some work needs to be done on our transmission lines, because for some reason we are only able to transmit coal-generated power so far. But we knew these were coming online. But a lot of that funding has actually gone into the place. So Eastern Europe, US, I think are the big countries. France, you'll see, is up there. The UK as well, interestingly, is a big focus. And with Brexit having been in the mix, we have seen the UK Foreign Common Office and DFID, and a lot of, and the way that UK, and this is where the UK sometimes is quite smart in driving their foreign expansion. They do less of the bilateral government-to-government investing. They push their companies and back them into going and doing investment into other African markets. So you're likely to see the UK investment in private company investment increase over the years from that side. So just some of the interesting stats in terms of where has most of the money come from. But then more importantly, where has this capital gone to in terms of key countries that you want to look at from that perspective? You will see there that Egypt outstrips even South Africa in terms of having received quite a bit of funding. Interestingly though, if you look at South Africa, it's that we are higher in projects, 110 projects versus the 91 projects. So we do an averaging of projects, capital, and jobs to rank you as to where do you fare out. So the number of 41, 45 there is really a averaging over the 5-year period of, so leading up to sort of 2018. South Africa, the projects are high because a lot of that funding has gone into the IPP projects, which was building out all these renewable power plants, energy to be able to supply clean energy into our grid. Egypt, a lot of the projects, as I said, mainly into rebuilding their roads, rail, and airport. Also, a lot of construction. So a lot of tourism and hotels have moved into Egypt and Morocco. That's well also construction is booming in that part of the world. Actually, I was returning back from a trip in North Africa the other day, and there were like 3 South Africans who are doing massive construction jobs on the plane back with me. So we might see construction as dead in our market, but hotel and road construction in those parts of the world actually booming from that perspective. Morocco as well, it's more in the industry. Nigeria also did receive a bit of funding, and for them, they were diversifying into the tech space. So fintech has become a big play for Nigeria. The oil investment has pretty much dipped and died down. They're also trying to drive renewable energy projects in that part of the world. So interestingly, Nigeria used to be, probably 30 years ago, produce a lot of their own power through coal stations and hydro. They mothballed all those things for some reason, decided to go into diesel. So they are opening up those plants as well. So that's where the countries where the FDI has gone to. Sectors, which probably will explain the countries that have invested and why they've invested. So the biggest sector that's received growth is your consumer products and retail. Just to explain, what we measure there is the broad retail consumer sector. You might be surprised, but this includes the companies that do a lot of the online purchasing and buying of supplying, so the tech companies that do online purchasing and selling. Secondly, the distribution companies, so your Imperial Logistics, they actually move a lot of these goods. You'd be surprised that right now, Africa is a net importer of luxury goods and products, particularly North Africa, even ourselves. That stuff then lands here, and either in harbor or port needs to then get railed or transported. So logistics, you'll see DHL, all these oaks are doing fantastically on the continent because they are in that distribution industry and network. So A skill to study, which will make you valuable on the continent even elsewhere, is logistics and movement, just to give you a tip in terms of where the money is going. Second biggest sector, which is really exciting, is technology, media, and telecoms. This is important for us because we are about to do another technological leapfrog, if you ask me. Remember a couple of years back, we went from not having enough fixed line to having almost every second person having a mobile phone in the hand on the continent. We're about to do the same with digital connectivity. So the days of you needing a big server in your basement and cables to store your data and move it, those days are gone. There's now cloud technology. So that's why Google has put up a data center in Nigeria, Kenya, and two in South Africa. Google has opened up their space there. Facebook, you probably also heard of a company called Jumia out in Nigeria. They are an online shopping and distribution company. They're actually doing quite well from their perspective. So a lot of investment into Africa has gone into new tech, cloud computing, Wi-Fi. Also some big 5G investments are coming into the market because they are because the challenge of Africa has always been connectivity. If, for example, to go and study the market and sell products into Zambia, you had to get onto a truck, drive there, try and cross Bait Bridge to figure out if their market didn't quite work. You are now able to, sitting on the comfort of your laptop, study what is the market of potatoes and tomatoes, for example, today in Kenya and Uganda. What price can I sell it? You don't have to get present in the market. You can then send your logistics company to say, actually, today, go and ship that. One big investment that they've done in Kenya into the farming community, they drop some microchips into the ground that do sensors. It actually tells the farmers when the rain is going to come, when the soil is ready for it to be planted, which then means they're now almost doing real-time scientific farming just in time. Secondly, they've now got, all the farmers have got mobile apps connected to the local vegetable produce market in town, where the daily trading prices of the various goods and services, your potatoes, tomatoes, are put online. As to today, you can receive X rand per tomato for your distribution, which means farmers also do just-in-time delivery. So if the price isn't right, they hold back. If the price is good, they all send it. Now, it's that technology that's coming a lot into the continent. To the earlier point, extractives, if you look at extractives and resources, they're probably sitting there fourth in terms of the level. Real estate has come, so the top three sectors, retail, consumer, including logistics, technology and media, real estate, hospitality, which is the hotel and construction industry, that's where the funding is going into, which explains why South Africa has dropped, Angola has dropped, Nigeria has dropped, and Mozambique has dropped. Question at the back.
Hi. So I just realized that South Africa, according to one of your charts, was the second highest
recipient of FDI,
foreign direct investment.
Correct.
Does that translate or correlate to job creation?
To a limited extent. So right now, it's similar to the Anadaka project, because remember, a lot of that so it did translate into jobs, because we've been doing the IPP projects over the last sort of 10 years. I think it was the fourth and fifth round where we've allowed foreign companies with renewable technology to come and build plants in our market to actually drive that growth. Where it hasn't really translated yet is that a lot of that power being produced is not yet being sold. So the offtake part is the missing bit. So hence why the government was under pressure to revise their industrial energy plan to allow clean energy to be provided to the grid. Hence why they're under pressure to break up Eskom into 3 divisions so that their transmission arm can actually focus on saying, how do I invest in actually connecting and being able to receive renewable energy supply into my plant? So a lot of those jobs went into these renewable power projects. So if you go to Eastern Cape, where there are these big solar panels being laid out there, big wind farms, and a lot of this, unfortunately, is into the heavy technology, the screens for the solar and so forth. So it's mechanical equipment, and some jobs were created, yeah.
I'm just thinking, with South Africa's economy regressing, don't you think we're not taking advantage of the African market? I mean, you mentioned Kenya now with the low young age group. I mean, can't your retail companies in South Africa not
take advantage of that?
Yeah. So, I mean, are we not sleeping while the Europeans and Americans are seeing the potential?
Yeah, I think you read my slides. That's the next part of my slides. I'll talk about that but there is a trend, you are right, in company expansion investment. Another question? Yeah. 5 minutes, okay, cool. So can I do full questions? And I'll take one more, then I'll just cover the end, yeah?
Thank you, because I'm confused. If we understand that FDI is how I see it correctly, good potential motive of job creation. And if all the FDI in South Africa last year, according to your slide, created 10,000 jobs, then we would have to double the FDI for 20,000 jobs. That doesn't sound significant.
Yeah, you would have to. So 10,000 jobs is a lot in a 12-month period. So, and remember, that's just purely private sector jobs being created. It doesn't count all the government projects and part-time jobs.
If that is our best strategy, FDI is our best strategy for job creation, and it only creates 10,000 jobs.
Right.
If we double our SDI, it would be amazing.
Right.
We would only add another 10,000 jobs.
So you must take that into account in terms of where's the economy currently sitting. So 10,000 jobs in the environment where there's been slow growth and jobs shading in some companies because of the slowdown in terms of government procurement. So a lot of this supply into that space. Hence why you couldn't create the jobs a lot more. Over the next 2-3 years, so it's the multiply effect of those 10,000 jobs has not happened yet. Because the companies who are making stuff and producing are not able to offload and sell those ways into the South economy because it's actually in recession. Hence why the jobs have slowed down. But I would argue in the next 2-3 years, you should see that multiplying much more quicker, if we get our economic fundamentals right. But let me just push on through quickly. There's just very last looking at the Southern Africa slide. If you look at South Africa in terms of growth, we're actually marginally in terms of our economy. We've actually slowed down quite a bit in terms of where we are now sitting. Well behind the Ethiopias, West Africa, and all those big growth countries. That's where I think our challenges sit. If you think about the big problem we need to solve in South Africa, it's our energy crisis. Because to do anything, to produce, to manufacture, you need sustainable power. And more importantly, we need to take advantage of clean energy. Lots of funding are available for the clean energy in that space. That's what we need to take care of. Technology is another area. We need to come out with a clear policy paper around how is government going to leverage digital capability? How are they enabling private sector to invest? For example, we've been stuck in regress mode in terms of defining the whole migration, from terrestrial to digital broadcasting for television stations, the whole program around cell phones and ICASA's view around how do you enable to open up the spectrum. So there are all these quirks that we are just not solving that are holding back growth. We've had IPP programs come online. We're not off-taking the power grid. So to me, two things South Africa focus on: solve the energy problem, give yourself access to renewable energy, unlock the digital communication and telecommunications industry for that to work. And I think that's really primarily some of the key things I wanted to highlight. And if you look at, in terms of full FDI flow, North Africa ranks. Southern, we're slightly behind, mainly because Morocco and Egypt were the top players in that space. And in terms of giving us a view, so I think that's probably where I want to pause and leave it for today in terms of saying, big growth in terms of foreign investment has gone more into North Africa. The growth also went into East. East has been able to translate that investment much quicker into driving GDP growth because they've driven your hospitality, retail, and also into technology. North Africa has driven tourism as well and a bit into technology, but lots of opening up its space. Southern Africa, we were a heavy extractives-focused company. Some of the big investments we received was the big investment into Sasol. Actually has really translated. That's actually gone offshore to try and build the plant they're trying to produce in the US. So a lot of funding that came in actually then bounced and went into a different area.